Hi, everyone. How you doing today? Thanks for joining us. My name's Joel Kaplan. I am the Associate Dean for our grad programs. We have about a dozen grad programs, and we decided to kind of have these like open house sessions by category. So we've already had some for entertainment, which involved our television, radio, film program and our audio arts program. And we had strategic communication, which involved our public relations program and our advertising program. And today we're going to focus on journalism. And we have basically 4 different journalism programs, master's programs that we've had for a long time, and they're really great. And we had the directors of all 4 of those programs with us today. And I'm going to quickly introduce them and then go a little longer. So we have, you can just raise your hand, Eric Grody, who is the director of the Arts Journalism Program. And we have Chris Toohey, who's the director of the Broadcast and Digital Journalism Program. And we have Bruce Strong, who directs the multimedia photography and design program, but the focus today will probably be on the photojournalism aspect of that. And then we have Melissa Cheshire, who is the director of the Magazine News and Digital Journalism Program. And all of our programs, all of our journalism programs, all of our programs tend to be these one-year wraparound programs that start in the beginning of July and end the end of June. And that's certainly the case with M&D, broadcast and digital and arts journalism. Broadcast and digital journalism goes an extra 6 weeks because they go to Washington. So they have like a double capstone, which Chris will talk about. And then photojournalism tends to go 1.5 years to 2 because they like to do an extensive master's project that wins them all sorts of awards and gets them great jobs. But what I'd like, before we go into the breakout rooms, I'd like each of the program directors kind of just to talk about their program, how it's different from some of the other programs, and then also kind of just to talk about where their graduates end up, so you get an idea of the type of jobs that the students get coming out of the program. So I'm doing my left to right. So I'm going to start with Eric, who is the director of the Goldring Arts Journalism Program.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So the Goldring program, which Dean Kaplan just mentioned, has actually changed in scope over the last year or two. It's now known as the Goldring Arts, Journalism, and Communications Program. So it actually could almost have played around a little bit with that strategic communications one that he mentioned. This program was created, and at its core is very focused on writing about the arts, thinking about the arts, putting those thoughts into words, and then packaging it in a way that really holds readers' interests and gets you hired ultimately. And that's how it was originally constructed, and it was very successful. We had a bunch of students go from here to places like American Theater Magazine, the New York Times, major papers in Dallas and Pittsburgh, People Magazine, places like that. But we also noticed that people were starting to get jobs at places like Alvin Ailey and the Kennedy Center and Sundance and places like that. So we've changed the scope a little bit so you can pick kind of a lane, or it's not specifically a concentration or a track, but it's sort of along those lines that you can bring those skills to bear, within an organization and work for a place like Ailey or Kennedy Center, or do it commenting on them from without. That's the idea. So it's a lot to pack into a year, but we're a small-ish, tight-knit group. I really enjoy being around each other, nerding out about culture for a year, and love to tell you more about it. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. And I realize I've been remiss because I need to also introduce the people who work in my office. So we'll start with Martha Coria, who is kind of the assistant director and runs everything and ran this. And then if you come here, you'll have 2 grad advisors who kind of help you to make sure you're on progress and everything. One is Teresa Jenkins, and the other is Jessica Del Fuco. There you go. All right, Melissa, we'll go with you next. Melissa Cheshire, who directs the M&D program. She's also the associate dean for diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And
Accessibility.
accessibility. Thank you, ma'am. And she also, congratulations, she just, the Meredith Teaching Award is the top award given at Syracuse University. They usually only give 2 a year, and she is the current recipient of that. So she's also a great teacher, Melissa.
All right. So I would say that students who are attracted to the magazine news and digital journalism program are curious about a lot of different topics. And although they are usually early on very interested in writing and reporting, very swiftly they act on that curiosity, both in terms of the stories that they want to tell and in terms of how they want to tell them. So I like to think of the M&D program as a bit of a Swiss Army knife, in that students come and decide which tool they want to use and how they want to use it. And the program is set up to accommodate curiosity, because unlike students who are drawn to arts journalism, they may want to write about culture or film, but they also may want to write about politics or the environment. So usually students have a lot of different interests. And I would also say that the majority of them want to expand the ways in which they can tell stories. And just as they may come in the door wanting to write about politics and then decide to write about the environment as well, they also come in wanting to write, but then also frequently fall in love with design, fall in love with the broadcast, fall in love with other skills that are more concentrated in other departments. And the students and I are very grateful for the generosity that other programs afford our students. So frequently students decide that they want to spend all of their electives in design. And we have students who graduate and go on to become designers at places that range from Vogue to the New York Post or other magazines and publications. So, and we also have students who, as I mentioned earlier, fall in love with broadcast. And we have an amazing broadcast program, and we have had students take 1 or 2 courses and end up at places like MSNBC and CNN. So we definitely benefit from the greatness that exists beyond our particular department. But I would say the defining element of students who want to come to M&D is that they love to write and that they're very curious about a lot of different topics and want to develop a range of tools to tell stories.
Thanks a lot, Melissa. Okay, next up, Professor Tui, who runs our broadcast and digital journalism program.
Thank you. And thank you, Melissa, for those kind words about the crossover between MND and BDJ, and it's absolutely true. But just a little bit of background of what broadcast digital journalism is all about. Oh, this is very nice. I have all-purpose cleaner on the screen. I don't know that people even see that. I keep a clean desk. BDJ, our legacy is radio and television news. And we have not abandoned that legacy, but it's become so much more in recent years. What we hear from the people who hire our students is that they're looking for Jacks and Jills of all trades. And that's what we try to provide. Our students over the course of the 13-month or so program become very steeped in storytelling with audio, storytelling with video, storytelling with the written word, different ways of combining different elements of storytelling on the web, from timelines and graphics to other sort of explainer pieces that go beyond the maybe the conflict of the argument over global warming, but pieces that explore what some of the different elements of global warming are all about and how it works and how the atmosphere warms up because of fossil fuels and so on and so forth. So like all the programs here, we try to pack an awful lot into the year. A lot of our students are people who have always wanted to be on-camera storytellers, and there still is a huge market for that. But another market that is even in terms of writing your own ticket, as it were, people who work behind the scenes as producers. There has never been such demand for people who can produce newscasts, produce programming of magazine shows, produce long form nonfiction pieces. You look at any broadcast group's employment webpage and you'll find 2/3 of the jobs are for producers. And so we encourage students to explore that option as well, because it's a really, like I said, the market is insatiable in terms of the number of producers it wants to find. So instead of starting your career as a reporter in North Platte, Nebraska, which is not a horrible thing to do, it's a good to go somewhere, make your mistakes in front of a smaller audience and move up. But as a producer, you can start in a bigger market and move up much faster. Again, a lot of our students still follow the tried and true path of going to work at local TV stations, usually in smaller markets, and working their way up from there. But in today's world of Jacks and Jills of all trades, we do have students who go to work for cable news operations right out of school. As producers, we have students who go to work for network news organizations right out of school. And even things that, 10 or 15 years ago, you never thought our students would be doing, like Bloomberg News, for example, doing business news online. And also some of our students, because of the video skills we give them, end up taking video skills to newspaper online platforms and other digital startups. So one of the things, your toughest task, I think, is going to be choosing a department to be in. They're all excellent. And even after students get here, they're not 100% sure which direction they want to go in. We try to provide flexibility, but we also want you to be where you want to be and where you stand the best chance of success. So one way of getting that done is to field as many of your questions as we possibly can to give you the best guidance we can. And that's what the second half of this session will be for. So with that, Joel, I will hand it back to you.
Exactly right, Chris. And I just want to, I'm going to introduce Bruce Strong last but not least, but I want to point out that in all of our programs, we've evolved. I mean, we're continuously evolving. I mean, they'll talk in their breakout groups about the faculty that, we have professor of practice in all these, because it's so important that we keep up with the press. So it used to just be broadcast journalism. Now it's broadcast and digital journalism for the very reason that Chris pointed out. Same thing with Melissa. It used to be magazine, newspapers, and online journalism. Now it's magazine news and digital journalism. And as Eric pointed out, it was just arts journalism, which is still very important, but so many of arts organizations need journalists to write their copy for their website. So it becomes arts journalism and communications. And for Bruce Strong, it used to be just photo. And now it's multimedia, photography, and design, because he's trying to do a lot more with the skills that the communicator in the 21st century needs. So Bruce, talk about the multimedia, photography, and design program. You're on mute, my friend.
There you go. You think you figured that out after a year or two of it. Anyway, thank you. So I welcome everybody. I'm glad you're here this afternoon. And I think Chris is right. No matter what, as long as you choose to come to Newhouse, you will have made a wise choice, because all of the programs here are really, really good. And one of the toughest choices will be between which program you're going to work in or study in. Our slice of the pie is really focused on, as the title suggests, multimedia, photography, and design. The department is called visual communications. Under it, we have a grad and undergrad, we have a military program, but the master's program is multimedia, photography, and design. And starting with the last one, design, anything you want to look at is basically designed, from magazines to books to websites to your iPhone with UI UX design. They're all using various forms of design, and we have a really talented faculty that will walk you through and help you pick areas that you're most interested in, whether it's flat and print design, or whether it's motion graphics that crosses over into the video world, or whether it's UI UX design, or we get into the immersive design as well with augmented reality and really helping you understand the coming options you'll have in the future. So on the design side, we have students coming in. The beauty of our department is that you're able to collaborate, and they often work with photographers that are in our program. Our program is unique in that we have the photojournalists also cross-training with the commercial advertising side, so that as you go through your life and you find that your interests change over time, you're able to move back and forth between working for the New York Times today, shooting an advertisement for Nike in Patagonia next week, and then flying off to Africa the week after that to work for a nonprofit organization or something like that, that you understand the ethics and the business practices of each. But in the journalistic area, you're really taught how to go out and tell stories, visual stories, powerfully. Being a photographer today means you also need to understand video. And we've developed a really strong video program as well that we're having more and more that our students are doing really well in. Vice President at the time, Vice President Biden, actually came and grabbed one of our students to be his videographer, cinematographer, to come follow him around in the last 4 months of his time in the White House when he was there with President Obama. And she just flew around on Air Force Two making videos about everything that he was doing. And our students wind up from the video side going to places like NBC or the White House or the New York Times or other places like that to produce video. On the still side, same kind of thing. They're going to the New York Times. We have 6 people working at National Geographic. They're in a variety of different areas. And then on design, the same kind of thing. The Washington Post, the Washington Post, Amazon recently hired somebody to work on their Alexa platform. So your desire is our goal. Whatever it is you come here hoping to do, we want to just help you build out the skill sets and the knowledge you need in order to be successful in that area. So we're pretty broad in that way. We don't have a specific platform, but rather we want to give you the skills and allow you then to adapt them and use them wherever you choose to go in the future.
Well, great. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks all of you, actually. And I mean, one thing they'll talk about when we have these breakout sessions is that all of our programs start with the 6-week boot camp in the summer, and all of them have their own version of capstones. The Art Journals Communication, they go to the Spoleto Festival in Charleston. MND, they create their own magazine or have internships. BDJ, they do a newscast the first summer session, and they go to Washington to produce them. And then in Bruce's, they have a very extensive master's project generally.